It's the worst of the CBC for April 6, 2022, the show where we watch the CBC so you don't have to. Take whatever. Long story short, they'll be outside. There are realtors out there. It kept screwing up, so we're just doing it because we have to get to this conference, so we're just doing it. Now, my favorite part of the entire thing was the first 5 seconds when you turned on CBC's The National, and then you went, wait, is this the same show from yesterday?
Yeah, well, it's same guest host, same sequence of stories. There's like a slight variation, and everyone's intonation just makes you feel like you're falling asleep. So just emotionally, I was even in the same place watching.
Welcome to my life, people. Now, probably the most underreported story in Canada is the billions of dollars we've actually saved in mental health crises, because I've been watching the CBC for you, keeping you sane and bearing that burden myself. Now, because of it, I'm a crazy person, but such is life. Now, we're going to go back to standard format, worst covered stories, biggest omission, Rosemary Barden scale. And the worst one today, I'll let you do the lead on this because I hate talking about this thing, the COVID nonsense.
Yeah, so COVID is up in Ontario, Quebec, and PEI, as if anyone even remembered that PEI was a province. So, guess what, guys? Cases are up, and that means we are going back into crisis mode. All the hospitals are about to be overwhelmed. Your children are unsafe. And they were going around, filming people's, fathers who are like, I'm scared for my kids going back to school if there's COVID around them. I'm like, what? No, stop it. This is not a thing anymore. The guy clearly is just very political, and he really likes the whole masking thing. Who cares? But
listen, to sum up the CBC, you're all going to die of COVID in 30 seconds. So if you can hit the like and share button right now before you die of COVID, that'd be super appreciated.
They brought in a neonatal pediatrician to tell us that fifth graders need to put on masks. The people who deal with month-old babies are here to tell you why everyone else needs to wear masks, because that's the area of expertise for them.
How many babies have died of COVID?
-4.
There you go.
There's 4 children who have been created out of thin air because of how bad COVID is actually affecting children.
All right, controversial Daniel opinion time, because after watching that segment, the freedom movement needs to stop putting the doctors and the nurses who agree with us on the front lines as the models. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm not saying they're not heroic for trying to do science in the age of anti-science. What I'm saying, though, is that's an argument you can never win, because you can put up facts and data and blah, blah, blah and science, and it doesn't matter to these people. The thing they ended on is what can we do to stop the sixth wave, which is what they desperately want, is the CBC wants a sixth wave. But they're like, well, only 50% of 5 to 11-year-olds are vaccinated. All right, let's use their science, trademark Dr. Fauci, and look at the argument. The Fauci science even says the vaccine doesn't prevent transmission. What it does is it protects you. You get vaccinated, you get COVID, you're less likely to die of COVID. That's what the current Fauci science says. So, why would they be proposing the way to stop a sixth wave is to vaccinate a 5-year-old? Because vaccinating the 5-year-old doesn't protect grandma. We've learned this. Or we don't learn anything these days. So you can put up all the doctors you want to say true things and have scientific data that's proven. You're like, why not? Because you might care about facts. They don't. They clearly don't. And they can bring 20 Pfizer-sponsored scientists wearing Dr. Teresa Tam bling, literally grills to say Tam bought me this, and they'll just say, well, no, experts disagree. And then for all the CBC audience, well, the science says we have to be scared forever. You need to win them on a liberty-based approach. Lockdowns are evil. You don't have the right to lock us down. This is killing people. You need to say liberty, human rights, that's where they can't, because they can't bring on an expert to say, well, actually, lockdowns are, everyone loves them.
They'll try to do that.
But it's less coherent, because when you're trying to win a scientific argument, they can just bring on, the CBC is just one massive appeal to authority logical fallacy. So, that was the worst covered story of the day. Second other one that needs to be mentioned as well is they finally covered farming prices going up like crazy and talked to a farmer. Yay, CBC, doing its job. But the CBC is also doing its job, right?
Terrible? I don't even know what I was supposed to say there.
That's because you have done the comedic stylings or competency. But it was a meta joke, because I knew that you wouldn't be able to do it, and about half the audience knows that I know that you didn't know what to do. So that thing there. Anyway, back to the Daniel show. The thing with is, guys, why are the farming prices going up? Now, stop it with your answers. The answer is obviously, as the CBC told us,
Russia and Ukraine.
There you go. Russia and Ukraine. Russia is the reason why the farmers' prices are going up.
They went up 8 months ago, but don't worry, it was still because of Vladimir Putin. The agricultural industry
He was
could
plotting
sense it.
he was scheming and plotting, and he was putting bad vibes out there, right? Vladimir Putin was planning to invade Ukraine a second time, which meant Mercury was in retrograde, so the energy and frequency coming off of Saturn and its rings was really affecting my astrological signs. And the farmers knew this, so that's why farmer prices went up. Before
you feel bad for the farmer that the CBC
Yeah.
was interviewing, because that they sent out 2 to 3 journalists out there with a camera and
they're
a microphone.
following around all day. They got lots of
around.
shots of him all day,
And they made it look like an idiot because they were clearly only cutting in the media friendly answers.
Oh, yeah.
Of, well, why do you think Russia and Ukraine has contributed to this? And he's like, yeah, I guess so. And then they cut the entire thing to say he thinks that this is what's going on. It's Russia and Ukraine. That's why.
And they said it. And they said it 3 times on the over voice before him, right? And then they got him to say a nice Canadian thing, oh, I guess I'm lucky I'm safe on my farm and not those people in Ukraine right now, which is true. It's better to be a farmer in Saskatchewan than it is to be currently in the middle of a war zone. No one's debating this, right? But again, there's a reason why farmers in mass joined the trucker protest, and the truckers joined the protest before, it wasn't just about inter-country vaccine mandates for truckers, right? That's not why the farmers went there.
I thought they went there because they were racist.
Oh yeah, that too. But also, there's this complete supply chain breakdown. Before the trucker protest, remember people were taking pictures in the grocery store of failing, grocery store and things not getting through. That was a big conversation.
Remember the fact checks that people were doing on those photos, and it was people like the CBC and Global and CTV that were even holding up those fact checks. It's it's not that bad, but you'd take a photo of your grocery store's produce section completely empty, and they're like, well, we walked 4 blocks and we found one that wasn't like that. Get out of here. But that's just what they do. Yeah, it's because those are all the Russian products, and we've taken them down. So it's actually a social justice statement as to why it's like this now. All right, now biggest omission of the day is there are bills that they should have covered that are actually important that shockingly they did not cover. Bill C-18, which basically makes the media bailout bribe system permanent by this insane thing where they get a percentage of Google and Facebook revenues, but only not the National Telegraph, only the Toronto Star and the Globe and Mail and the good Stasi's that they are. So effectively, they're taking money from the National Telegraph because of any money that we make is essentially reduced because Google and Facebook now have to pay the CBC and the Toronto Star and CTV News because they're so important or whatever, and they can't somehow operate on a measly $1.3 billion. With I don't even know how they waste that money. It's not like their hosts would demand a high price unless they're just giving it to them. These are not exactly the best in the industry.
Yeah, you're right. It's going to come out of the RPOC in the National Telegraph, the meager ad revenues that we make, and it's going to go to the friggin' Toronto Star, which also now has Doug Ford gave them a license to run online gambling, which is crazy. So if you want to support the National Telegraph, we'll leave a link in the description below. It's helping us raise money to cover stories. If you want to support the CBC, then vote Jagmeet or Justin. It's the same thing these days.
Then we have Bill 100 in Ontario. Then we also have Bill 1 in Alberta. And so the government, I'm not sure how this literally doesn't make the news at all. Even if you're on the left, you think that they would want to cover this to kind of rub it in the convoy's face. But it's essentially anti-convoy bills going through provincial legislatures where they're going to ban you from essentially protesting the government with a truck in any way. I don't know if it matters what kind of vehicle, but they'll be well, if you're obstructing the highway or roads in any way, they'll find an excuse to take your
laws on
license plate.
The book that prevent you from blowing up a pipeline or blocking anything. It's just they were never enforced. So even when the Emergencies Act was instituted, you could still try and burn people alive in cars and attack them and infrastructure with machetes as long as what you're protesting is in line with the values of Stefan Jabibliot. Okay? But if Stephen Jaboblio doesn't like what you're doing, well then Doug Ford's going to take your house away, take your truck, take your car.
All these new bills do is they basically remove the burden of proof for seizing your property, and they say, well, you were sitting next to the Parliament building with your van, holding up a sign that says that you don't agree with the mandates, and, while someone got to work 30 seconds later than they would have, ergo, we're going to take your license, we're going to take all your commercial licenses away, your license plate's going to be revoked or whatever, and you're not going to be able to drive.
So someone at the Bitcoin conference invents a time machine, because Bitcoin or something, and blockchain. and I go in it, and I go back to, like, some point in 2019 and try and explain to people that Jason Kenney and Doug Ford are trying to institute these laws, and no one on the left or the media cares one lick and is actually supporting the nonsense, do they believe me? And what would they think would have to happen in order to get to this point? And that's really where we are.
Yeah, the biggest Kathleen Wynne liberal in 2018 would be like, we hate Doug Ford, but don't be mean to the guy. Don't slander him by saying.
No, I don't think they would say that. You missed how insane Ontario is.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Or was. Is. Well, was and is. This is a new type of insanity. Welcome to COVID. So finally, we are going to do the Rosemary Barton scale of rating. We agreed on a 7.5 of the Rosemary Barton scale of bias because, hey, there are some stories they didn't completely screw up. They didn't do them well, but they didn't screw them up. And it's a high bar to get to a 10 these days because the world is insane. Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe. See, we did over 10 minutes this time. Blah, 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 blah. And if you want to support the National Telegraph and this and whatever, click links below. Lila Tuff.